Yo guys, what up? What up guys? Different setup obviously. I don't know if you could tell. Normally I do my content creation streaming on the computer back here in the back. But this is my workstation, right? So this is my content creation slash game station, but this is my workstation. Again, I use Windows over here. I use Mac OS over here. So work for me is Python programming, AWS, even some video editing, emails, documentation, things of that nature, right? So one of the things that I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be doing a lot of live streams throughout the day, just kind of sharing some feedback, like sharing what I'm working on, right? Answering questions that you may have, things of that nature. So I need to improve it because right now I'm using a Blue Yeti mic, not the best compared to what I have over here, which is better, but I think it'll get the job done for now. So again, quality may not be the best. Camera, you could tell I'm literally using a webcam. It's not the best camera compared to my 4K Blackmagic cinema camera over here, which is way better, obviously, right? Lighting, I got somewhat a setup for lighting, so not bad, but again, I may expand on it and get a setup over here if I'm going to be doing more and more live streams. But I'm going to try it out probably for the next months, be doing live streams throughout the day, again as I work. And then as I'm working, share with y'all some of the things that I'm working on as well, right? That's the other thing, right? Kind of provide some input to maybe some projects that I'm working on. What am I doing? I may not always be able to share the code per se on what I'm working on, but when I can, share some of the code that I'm working on, things of that nature, right? And then also, again, when y'all guys have questions, man, go ahead and leave it on the chat. I cannot say that I could stop what I'm working on and jump on your question all the time, but I'll try to make some time anyways, squeeze, especially if it's something that's not too complicated, or maybe something I already know the answer to, right? So it may not take me as much to show you. Then, yeah, I could try to squeeze in a few minutes. But ultimately, the goal here is I'm going to be streaming as I work, sharing with y'all some of the things I'm working on as well, and try to answer some of y'all questions. So yeah, guys, so again, this is something completely new that I'm going to be doing. I'm going to probably do it for the rest of we're in months of April. My goal is probably do it, honestly, guys, every day, Monday through Friday, from now to the end of April. See how things work out with the live stream. If it works out well, I'm going to continue on doing it and maybe make some tweaks to it on certain things that I feel that works best. And then ultimately, if things do work out, get a little bit better setup, right? Actually get a better camera, invest some money into getting a better camera. Like, keep this camera over here. So whenever I do videos, streams, like again, whenever I game, stream on Twitch and all that, that's my setup back here in the back. But when I'm working, this is going to be my setup. And obviously, again, quality is not to the same standard of what I'm used to putting out. But hey, guys, it's fine for now, man. I'll make it work. One of the things that I'm working on right now, doing some code cleanup. I think I could probably show y'all. Let me make sure I'm not showing anything of importance here. I don't think I am. So let me go ahead and... Oops, what the hell happened here? Hold up. Oh, no wonder it zoomed in. That's not what I wanted. So let me make my text, because the text is actually very small. All right, so let me go ahead and share this. So I am my daily driver on what I use to work. When I say work, I mean coding wise. Again, I do other. For me, work is I do different things, right? When it comes to work, I code, obviously. I do some content creation on YouTube. Again, depends who you ask, but it does take effort. It does take work. Obviously, do video editing. Do some accounting stuff, like just more like not accounting, better yet, more like managing the books for the business, administrative type work, that I have to do as well. Do research. Always gotta keep learning, right? I mean, things of that nature. Either way, I do a lot of different things. But my main driver is Mac OS. So I have a Mac Studio is what I'm using. A good bang for your buck. So you're trying to get a Mac, but you don't want to get a MacBook Pro or nothing like that. Do Mac Studio or even Mac Mini is the way to go. Good bang for your buck there for sure. I use Parallel Desktop, which I gotta say, man. So I'm running Windows, as you could tell on here. Main reason why I got Windows on here because I use SSMS, SQL Server Management Studio. There's certain things as well that I don't recall having an issue with Mac in the past. I don't know why that's the case, but I have been having issues with, for example, PyODBC. I had issues installing that on my Python environment, my Python interpreter, but on Mac, which is very strange because I have a MacBook Pro and that never was an issue. But one of the things I noticed though was, especially with the new M1 chips, I don't know if it has anything to do with that. Maybe it does, anyways. But Python had to be installed. Like it did not come with it by default, which is not normal, man. Because I have used Macs in the past and Python. Same thing with Linux, man. Python is like default provided. It was not. So I had to get that installed. I did not install it using Brew. And I don't know if that caused some issues because eventually I did install Python with Brew, which installed it a different version, which was like Python 2.9, I believe, or 2.11, to be honest with 2.11. And then so now with when I create a new environment with 2.11, I'm able to install the packages like normal. But when I use the other version 2.9, I have issues. Again, very strange, man. I need to look into it some more, try to figure out exactly what's going on there. But some issues for sure. Let's see. But I'll look into that later. Either way, I'm working on this this project, and ultimately, what I'm doing here in this project is we have one of our servers that's going to be generating these. Let me make this bigger, dude. It is very small. And let's see. Nope. There it goes. That's what I was looking for. Dude, what the hell happened here? What the hell, man? Did this shut down on me? That was strange. I don't know what the hell happened there. All right, something happened. Oh, it's related to recording. And because I'm actually recording, it did not like that. That makes sense. That actually makes sense. All right, let's see if it's restarting now. So there's a few things that I'm still, I guess, tweaking. From a sense of, since I just installed OBS Studio. Again, I normally don't use this to record or to stream, to be honest with you, right? I use a computer that's in the background. That's the computer that I use to do YouTube videos. That's the computer I use to do my streaming, whether it be on Twitch, YouTube, etc. All right, so let me go ahead and zoom in, and hopefully it doesn't crap out on me. Dude, it did it again. What the hell, man? It's like it doesn't like me to zoom in, which is very strange. Dude, I have never had this issue before. Well, here's the thing. I don't really haven't been. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's strange. And I don't need to send a report. That's fine. So let me change it up. I'm gonna do something real quick. Okay. Yeah, I don't know why. I don't need to have it open in the Windows environment. I just have it open on my Mac, which is what I should have had. But either way, so ultimately what I'm doing here is I kind of go through a little bit. I have a server where the server, we have a job that a process. Ultimately what it does, it generates these Excel files, right? So, and there's some logic to how it generates these Excel files. But nevertheless, not trying to get too complicated, it generates 18, 20 different Excel files. Now, by cluster, you can tell here in org, right? So, but nevertheless, it's generating those Excel files. So now in that server, it saves those Excel files to a folder, and we have, again, those 20 or whatever, how many we have Excel files. So, but those Excel files are very plain Jane. They have no styling to it, no nothing. It's just raw data, with no formatting, none of that. So in this project, there was a few things. The client wanted, like, all right, I want those files, to be formatted nice and pretty, right? So that's number one. Number two, they wanted to add, make some adjustments, like, all right, don't have the header start in row 1, have it start in row 2, because in row 1 we want to put some info to it to let the user know that this report was generated on this date and this time. So it just kind of lets them know when the report was generated. And then on top of that, what I'm doing is I'm formatting the Excel file. I'm attaching that Excel file to an email. But the other piece is there's some raw data, CSV data, that's being added as well to the body of the email. Okay, and ultimately I'm emailing it to a specific email account where somebody else is going to finish up the process. So what I'm doing is I have these jobs where I get an email file, kind of starting from the beginning, like from step 1 to step 2. I get this zip file through an automated email system, and so I built some steps in Power Automate to, anytime I get an email from that email account with this subject, take the file, unzip it, and then save it to, let me rephrase it. Get the file zipped as is in Power Automate and save it to an FTP site. So it drops into the FTP site. I have another step. This is not in Power Automate. This is using some tool that I use. A lot of my automation tools that I use to schedule jobs and with many steps, it's called Visual Crones. So Visual Crones, if you're not familiar with, let me kind of show you real quick. Very powerful tool. You can do all kind of stuff with it. So this is the website. You go to it. And ultimately, you could schedule this kind of just screenshots on how it looks. But again, you could schedule, create jobs. Then each job will have different steps. As you could tell, this step is, backup, settings, so forth, sync. So you can do all kinds of stuff, but it has all kinds of features where you could connect to SharePoint. You could, whether it be call APIs, the list goes on. Command lines, just literally run command lines. You could run scripts as well. I believe JavaScripts and stuff like that. It has all kinds of, you kind of tell you some things here, right? Email, send emails. You could extract data from a JSON, XML. There's a lot of things you could do with it. So that's what we use for it, to schedule a lot of our jobs, to run a lot of our processes. And then we have a job there that's trigger based, that ultimately say when a file gets dropped to this FTP folder, go ahead and start the job. And when it starts the job, it's going to unzip the file. It's going to move it to a new folder, and then it's going to extract the data, the CSV data from that file, and load it to a Postgres database, right? So step 1 is unzip file. Step 2 is move it to this new folder. Step 3 is extract and load to database. And then step 4 is generate the Excel files that needs to be generated. Right now I'm working on step 5, which is execute this Python script. And that's kind of where this comes in. This is a Python script that I'm working on. Need to do a little bit of cleanup, but ultimately got it out. I got it pretty much to work today. So it seems to be working now. And ultimately what this Python script is doing, we just kind of walk through the process. It's querying this database view that we have that will give us a unique list by cluster and what's called org level. And ultimately, based on those two criterias, that's how we're filtering this view to be able to pull all of the like I want to call it header type details, and that data that we get back, it's being added to the body of an email in CSV format. Now the reason why it's kind of we're doing that is there's another team that is going to finish off the process, and by that I mean they're going to receive the email from me. When they get the email, they're going to take that CSV data in the body, and they're going to ultimately convert that to some sort of table in a body of email, but they're going to make it look all pretty as well. So it's going to be formatted a lot better. It's going to look all nice. The email template, like they have an email template and all of that. So they're going, but all I'm giving them just the raw data, and they want it in a CSV format, which is what I'm doing. And as they get that data in the bottom of the email in the CSV format, I think I have a sample to show y'all real quick. This is all test data, so it should be fine. Where is it at? But you know what? It doesn't have. It actually has real information, so I guess I can't show y'all this. Yeah, can't show that. So that's fine. But either way, it's in a CSV format, like data set, but it's in the body of the email. They're gonna have a process and Power Automate where they're gonna take that data and they're gonna populate it into this email template they have and generate a table in that email template, and then populate some other values like like dear whoever is going to, and things of that nature. And then ultimately I'm also giving them a Excel attachment. In my process here, I have a function called format Excel. And ultimately what I'm doing here is I'm taking the raw Excel. It's Excel file that has no styling to it. at all, right? It's very plain Jane. Well, the client wants to be all nice and pretty and things of that nature. So that's kind of where I'm doing some styling. They also want to add some info section that specifies the date and time. And that's kind of where I'm using here my America Chicago, because I wanted to be in CST time, because this file is going to get sent internationally to people in Australia. I mean, the list goes on and on, UK and so forth, right? So at least they know this data set was generated at this time. So if they ever there's any issues from a timing standpoint, at least they could pinpoint, when the report was actually generated. So that's kind of where this info piece comes in, and it's being put in the first cell, which is row 1 and column A. But again, this is where I do all my formatting here, for header formatting, bold, text wrap, color, things of that nature. And then this is where I do my column width adjustments, adjusting the width of the column and so forth. But again, that's what this is doing here, the format Excel. And then ultimately send email message function that I have here. This is what actually sends the email out. So all of these here, these are all my environment variables. Again, instead of hard coding in these values like password and email, which is not safe to do, it will be stored in a .env file. And then when the process runs, it'll extract it and it'll utilize those variables in the script. So again, if you're not familiar with environment variables, guys, very important to get familiar with it, because what you don't want to do, especially in the production environment, I'm gonna put it this way, you don't even want to do this in tests, guys. And even in your tests, you don't want to do that. But you want to make it a habit where you're not hard coding in passwords and things of that nature in your script. Especially if you got, code that you're going to end up pushing out to GitHub or GitLab or wherever. I mean, that's even worse. That's the last thing you want to do, man. Hard code any password, any credentialing, and then push it out there. Even if it's a private repo, it's going to always be there. And your repo one day becomes public or something, or somebody or teammates pulls that repo, dude, you're going to have issues, man. So again, if you're not familiar with environment variables, dude, become familiar with environment variables. There's a few ways to do it. You could configure the environment variables in your system, or in my case, the way I'm doing it, I'm generating a .env file on the server that I'm going to push this out to, and then from there, be able to utilize those variables. So that's something to keep in mind. Also, guys, like right now, I'm working on, where is it at? Damn it. Nope, I don't need this. Let me close out of that. Let's see. So if you need something to help out with your readme file, your readme.md file, like when you create a new project, check out readme.so. I've been using it as of late, and it comes in very handy, right? So you have your different sections on the left side, so it kind of gives you like templates for what you need. Like for example, environment variables kind of gave me a template. Then ultimately I could just start adding on to it, and that's kind of what I did. These are the environment variables that need to be created, and it kind of tells you in your .env file. So this one needs to ultimately be created, and ultimately configured when whatever server you publish your code to. But what I like about this, man, depending on what you're adding to your readme file, it has templates here. Like if I click on FAQ, it kind of gives you the whole template, right? And you'll see it on the left side on how it looks. So ultimately, you just provide a question and give the answer, things of that nature, right? So I like it, guys. I mean, I'm maybe there's better tools out there for this job, but I think this is quick, easy, gets the job done ultimately, right? So then of course you have your installation. So obviously for me, since I'm using Python, my main thing is always to install the virtual environment. Call it oops. So that would be my bash, which would be Python virtual environment. Source bin if you're in Mac or Linux, scripts if you're in a Windows. What else? And then it will be activate. And then the next thing would be pip install read requirements.txt. So I have a requirements file over here. That would be the next thing to do. Install Python and install packages. But either way, guys, this is like a nice tool. It's free, obviously, right? Just go to it, readme.so. And yeah, man, I think it'll be handy to generate your README files. Let's see. So that's kind of what I'm doing here, Matt, here with this code base. So this is, again, this is where I'm bringing in my environment variables, and I'm assigning them to these variables there, and then ultimately this is why I'm using them right throughout my process. Database connection. This is a Git cluster org level list. So I'm getting a specific list back that's unique to kind of give me a unique combination of cluster and org level. And then this is where I'm actually generating a data set, curriculum data set. And this is ultimately the CSV data that's going to get loaded to the body of the email. And then I got the get curriculum data. This is what, again, I'm querying the database by those two criteria, cluster, org level. And then, of course, email, send email, format Excel, and then run. This is where it's actually running the process. It's iterating over that list. And then ultimately it's writing the CSV data in memory, and then format Excel, send the email. And then this piece is ultimately to be able to run this run method, which is ultimately just executing the .py file that I have here. Let's see. Check my email real quick. Let me check one of my processes that I have. All right, this is done. All right, cool. That's all done. So this server that I have here is pretty much what it is. It's a server that's used to transform XML documents that we get, and it converts them into PDF in a specific format template that we have. So pretty much extracts the data of the XML. And then, so the tool that I'm using for that, because again, even though I'm a software developer, I don't necessarily always code everything either. There are tools out there that we use. So one of the tools, the softwares that we use is Atova. In this case, it would be, where is it? Desktop style vision. So what this does is it's a tool that allows you to create, think of it as crystal reports, I guess, right? Crystal reports probably a good example. So this is like your template, your template, and ultimately all of these tags, these nodes, right, that are in here is pretty much coming from some sort of, again, calculation, but some sort of, let's say XML document, right? So it's able to take XML or even CSV or JSON, I believe, like other formats, but it's taking the data from that document, and it's able to, again, extract it and populate it into this template. I'm trying to see if there's a better example. Like they have charts and stuff. The one that I'm working on, we're not doing any charts, just kind of more straightforward. Again, you can build like table data sets, things of that nature. But either way, it's kind of what we do. We get to the XML documents, and then we're generating PDF documents from them in a specific template that we built. Once we do that, so the way the process works on that specific server, that's all that server does is one job and one job only, to convert XML files that we have over to a PDF document in a specific template that we have. The way it works is we have an S3 bucket that server pulls files from an S3 bucket and stores it locally, and then the job ends up running and it ends up using this software here, but we're using the server version of it, which is this one, Style Vision Server. So what this allows you to do is generate a Style Vision file, which is, think of it like the template aspect of it, and then pass in arguments of this is the XML file that we want to process, and then this is where we're going to save it to, things of that nature. But the Style Vision server allows it to automate that, right? To kind of run through the command line. So through the command line is able to execute and run this service that will do those conversions for you automatically. And that's kind of where that comes in place. So we're using, in that server that I showed you, the Windows server, we have a task scheduler job set to run like every, 30 minutes maybe, or something like that. And then every time it runs, what it does, it downloads files from an S3 bucket, stores it locally, and then it runs this this command line, which is a Styles Vision server command, which is like a .exe file that takes in arguments, which is a file paths and things of that nature. But either way, it runs that, so it's able to scan through the folder and then ultimately generate, like if we have a folder that has 100 files, it iterates over that one by one file at a time, takes in the XML, generates PDF, takes XML, generate PDF. In my step, I do have, when it generates the PDF and it saves it like locally, after that, it pushes that file back up to S3 bucket. So again, we download S3 bucket, we transform it from XML to PDF, and then we take that PDF and push it back to S3 bucket. Once it go back to an S3 bucket, I have another job and another server that I have, which is our automation server, right? It's where we have Visual Crones running, that software running, that's automating a lot of our processes and jobs. There's a job there that runs every like 30 minutes, I believe, or something like that. And what that does is says, go ahead and download that file, that PDF file from an S3 bucket. And when it downloads it, it saves that locally. And then it's utilizing one of our processes where it sends that document, that PDF document, to an ERP system. And it gets uploaded to like the right file and things of that nature. So again, there's other stuff. Again, it sounds complicated. And honestly, it took effort to try to automate that per se, because we're all using different tools. We're using, again, instead of me, I could have created my own Python application or script, I guess, that could do a lot of that, like convert it from XML to PDF, and then be able to just send it directly to the ERP system. But because we decided to go more use some of these other tools, in my opinion, it becomes more handy in ways, because it speeds up the process against letting some of these tools do some of the heavy work, and then ultimately we just, we don't need to code everything either. So a lot of these tools are being maintained as well. Like I do have to buy the licenses every year, so there's a cost associated, but I mean, it did allow us to speed up the process on building it. Plus we don't have to maintain everything either, and it would have been a lot of effort, I think, if we would have built it ourselves. I think anyways it would have. But yeah, this is one of the tools that we use. All right, let me go back. So ultimately, I'm going to end up pushing this. I got my requirement. These are the packages that I'm using in the process. I'm working on my README. This is like the default README, but I'm going to change it to what I'm working on putting together. What else? And then I have my script that I'm running. One of the things, and this is temporarily for now, like to kind of get the job done, because there's some urgency for this project to get this automated up and going. We're gonna build and I did this for one of my other clients, where we actually build this application that it allows us to, for example, execute all of certain processes that we're doing. Like this is a process, and the way this gets executed is by running this run method. Now, ultimately, the way this run method gets run is by executing this file. Well, I created this application for one of my other clients where we're using Flask, again, Python and Flask, and we have a web service, and ultimately everything's HTTP, driven. So we have a URL that, let's say, for example, that would ultimately execute this process here. And as we have other processes that we need to execute and, do something, right? Like start the job to do certain things. We would just create an additional URL for that process. So, I mean, assuming we have like 5 or 6 different processes that we need to like start the job, and again, everything's built in, let's say, Python, it would be better organized as well. Then ultimately it'll be running through the HTTP protocol, like through the URL. So we just call the URL and it'll start the job. So even if we need to run it ad hoc, as an example, we can just call the URL and it'll run, right? So which becomes kind of gives the ability to do other things. You could easily add it to a web page, where that web page would have just like a hyperlink, and you click on it, it'll start the job, right? Because it's sending a GET request to the URL, and then the Flask application is going to require a GET request, as an example. And then if there's any parameters, it will be part of your URL, right? It'll be like your URL pass question mark, when whatever your arguments are, right? That you could intake to make it more dynamic. Like for example, like this email to, that could easily be added to your URL. So you could provide it to your URL and it'll populate that to your email too. So you could be dynamic, send it to different emails, as an example. So that's something we may end up doing, but for now, this is what we're going to put together and deploy. And since, there's some urgency to kind of get this up and running by the end of this week. So far, tested it out. Everything seems to work fine. I got the Excel file formatted, looking nice and pretty and all of that stuff. But there's some more. There may be a plan to build this, take this code that we have here and build it more to a web service application that we're going to build using Flask, but that's kind of still in the talks. We'll see what we end up doing there. All right, let me go ahead and try to get this published out, man. Again, guys, man, feel free to ask any questions that you have. You just want to know certain things that I'm using, like what do I use for IDE, what tools, am I using any third-party applications, doing my, things of that nature. By all means, you're more than free to ask that. I'd be more than happy to share with y'all, some of the things some of the tools that I use. Some of them are not free. I got to pay for, and they're not cheap either. I say they're not cheap. Maybe for a big company, they're like pennies. I mean, they're nothing, but I'm not a big company. So for me, I look at it like, yeah, they're not cheap. So let me see, where's my, dude, did I lose my page? All right, let me go ahead and finish this up. And then I'll get this published out to my GitLab. So I use GitLab, just FYI. I use GitHub for my YouTube content, but for work on, how we, store our repos, I use GitLab, So I've been using GitLab for some years now. Back, the main reason why I started using GitLab way back was, at the time, GitHub did not have a private option to make your repos private. But GitLab did, and it was for free. Let me put it this way. GitHub did not have a private for free option, right? Have repos private for free. GitLab did have that option. And now ultimately they have like a paid version as well, which is more like enterprise level and things of that nature. But they have the free version where you can have private repos. And for that reason, I went with GitLab way back when. So pretty much because of that, I stuck with GitLab. I don't really have a need to switch, I guess. Let's see.
What?
All right. Let's see. All right. So let me go ahead. I'm going to finish up my Readme file real quick and then get this code pushed out. But you know what? Before I do that, I'm gonna go grab something. I'm gonna go grab something to drink real quick, guys, and I'll be back. All right, guys, I'll be back. Alright guys, I'm back. I gotta go get my drink. I'm gonna go work out in a few, so my pre-workout drink. Let's go ahead and get this done so I can publish this out. Alright, I think I have everything that I need. Let's copy this bad boy. Alright. So let me go ahead and now let me push this out. Open up my terminal. All right, cool. So now this has been pushed out. Let me come just to make sure. Yep, there it goes. Awesome. All right, cool. So that's done. So I got that pushed out to GitLab. What I need to do, I'm not going to do that now because I need a little bit more time, but probably maybe later today or maybe tomorrow. Not today, I'll do it tomorrow. Is I need to go ahead and pull in this code over to the server where it's going to be running this. Pretty much set up a virtual environment, pull in, clone the code over to the production server, and configure it in our Visual Crinos job that we have. So again, I mentioned earlier, one of the tools that we use when it comes to like scheduling a lot of our jobs and things of that nature is this tool called Visual Crinos. So I like it a lot, guys. It does a lot. If we look at the features, FTP, SFTP, database against task scheduler. So think of it as a Windows task scheduler, but feature rich, dude, like all kinds of features. PowerShell automation, again, you could call it, PowerShell command line, all of that. Execute .exe files, SQL database. I use this a lot. So what we use it for heavily is like, let's say execute procedures, like store procedures, things of that nature in SQL. We use it to connect to SFTP, FTP sites, to push or pull files in. We use it to execute .exe file. We use it as well to run commands, command line interfaces, whether it be AWS command line interface or whatever, but we use the terminal to like run some of these steps. What else do we use it for? think we use it to do some SharePoint as well. And then those are like the main things that we use it for anyways. We do use it to call HTTP requests. There's an HTTP method, which is we use it to call like certain API URLs. And then ultimately those APIs do certain things. So we use it for that. But again, there's a lot of other things you could tell, right, by looking on here. Document scanning. Oh yeah, so we use it as well to but this is more AWS command line interface. We execute the command line interface, which ultimately what it does is either it shuts down or starts our EC2 instance. We have one of our servers that we use that's strictly used for what I mentioned earlier, convert XML documents to PDFs. But we don't want that server running 24/7, to kind of reduce costs. So what we do, we have that server spin up at, let's say, 5 a.m. and then it gets turned off at 5 p.m. as an example. So it only stays up for half a day. But we have it scheduled to do that using Visual Crinos, which again, we're using AWS command line interface. And that command line interface is what starts it and stops it. But again, we're using Visual Crinos to execute that command line interface. So that's just an example how you can use it. So we have found all kinds of creative ways to use it. So for us, it comes in very, very handy. And it's a big, we used another tool before. Honestly, I used a few tools. When I first got started, I used, what did I use? Task Scheduler for like 1 or 2 tasks. And it worked fine until I started needing more and more jobs to automate, to run. And then I started using SQL Server Agent because we had a SQL Server instance running. So we started using that. And that worked to some degree, right? To some degree for certain tasks, it worked. But then it started getting a bit messy and it didn't accommodate all the features that we wanted to do. Because we started getting more and more. It went from 2 to 3 to when we're using SQL Server Agent, maybe we had like 15 tasks running. And then now that we switched to Visual Crinos, dude, we have that server literally, we have like dozens and dozens, like probably 50 plus, maybe more, 60, 70 tasks right now running, scheduled. Some of them are trigger based, some of them are scheduled. But yeah, it's all running through the Visual Crinos application. Okay. So what do I have next to work on? Let me check my calendar real quick. So an upcoming project, kind of started on it, but need to make some changes because of the approach is going to be different. But ultimately, I'm going to be sending XML transmissions to a trade partner with encoded PDF documents. But we're going to be dealing with many PDF documents as well, not just like 1 or 2. It's going to, potentially be, well, let me phrase it, it's going to be probably like 6 or 7 PDF documents, but each document going to contain multiple pages, some more than others. So the amount of pages could be like 2 pages, or it could be up to 15, 30 pages as an example per PDF document. So that's something that I'm working on. I kind of build the script to do that, where we're taking database data and then ultimately converting that to an XML document with the process of merging these PDF documents into one based on specific types, and then encoding that PDF document to encoding base 64 encoding, and then ultimately take that encoding value and populate it to the XML. The problem now is, I'm not saying not that that's a problem, but one of the big changes now is the schema that I used initially, the XML schema, was one that I created because that's what I was asked by the trade partner. Hey, you create your own. Well, now they have a specific schema structure they want to use, so I gotta redo it under their schema structure. So yeah, man, just little stuff like that I need to rechange. And on top of that, we're gonna be. I need to see if I could access their environment. Right now, I don't have access to post nothing to their endpoint they provided. But ultimately, I'm gonna, they kind of provide an endpoint on where I'm gonna be posting this information to. I believe right now they're using the SOAP method, which I'm not a fan of, but I could work with. I'm not a fan of it though. SOAP is very old school, so I don't know any of y'all how familiar y'all. Anybody who works with RESTful APIs today. So like your newer methods, right? Is obviously you got RESTful API and GraphQL as an example, but the methods that were generated way back when was SOAP, and SOAP is still utilized today. It's just one of the methods that I don't think is gonna ever go around until company just decide to stop using it. But there's a lot of tools out there that still use it, and even there's some tools that are very heavily specialized in it that big organizations are using. And for them, like, there's no need for them to change. Like, why are they gonna rebuild their back end to accommodate, let's say, RESTful API or something else when SOAP works? And if it works, they're gonna make you the trade partner that's communicating with them to figure it out. So again, man, I'm not a fan of it, but I'm gonna have to work with it. It is what it is. But that's a project that I started on, but now I gotta make these changes because of how we're gonna be communicating and the schema changed. So now I need to start working on that. I'm trying to think what project I need to wrap up. I do have one project I need to wrap up first before I start on that project. And it's related to some changes that are being done in one of my client systems. So I need to do some testing on these changes to make sure that it doesn't break anything, and then to be able to accommodate for sure. So that's kind of what I had. There's always other little things that pop up throughout the week for sure, but those are like the main things that I need to work on this week. And then of course other little things that pop up where meeting with somebody from my team. Sometimes they reach out to me as well throughout the week of, hey, can we meet real quick, review this, I'm stuck, they need some guidance, things of that nature. Also, I am working on a project too, so like, I actually would really appreciate this, guys, if y'all don't mind. So if you go to GoShareIt.io, so this is an app that I built, right? When I say I built, my business, GoAppit, we have built it. So that's the name of my company, GoAppit. And ultimately, we deal with a lot of integration projects for clients and also web applications, stuff like that. We built our own platform. This is called GoShareIt. It's a sharing platform, very comparable to WeTransfer, Dropbox, as two probably more popular examples that are out there. I'm pretty sure there's more, but those are like the two more popular ones. And ultimately, what this allows you to do to go ahead and like share files, right? Share any kind of document, small or large. And then you could set expiration dates on it, like expires in an hour, in a day, 7 days, 90 days, etc. And ultimately, its whole purpose is to be able to allow you to share with external people. So a good example would be you're trying to share a file that's an external recipient from your organization. If it's internal, a lot of the time it's not an issue, because if you're using Office 365 or what is it, Google, like Google's enterprise, platform, you can always use like OneDrive, or SharePoint, or Google Drive, right, to share documents internally. It's not an issue. It becomes more of an issue when you're trying to share externally with other individuals. And then on top of that, that's where you don't want to make it public either, because in theory, if you make it public and you share a URL link with them, anybody who gets that link will have access to those documents, files, etc. So that's kind of where I created this tool to allow you to share documents, file anything, video, audio, document, PDF, Excel, doesn't matter, right? Raw text, large files, to be able to share. Because I did that whenever you share. A lot of time with people, what I have seen is a lot of people share files and they just send it to the email attachment, right? They attach it to the email, send it over. That works for small documents, doesn't work for big documents. Big documents being videos, right? Even large audios, files, etc. Depending on how your organization is configured, there are limits to it as well. I think by default it's like 25 megabytes, but again, companies do expand it, and I believe the most you could expand it to like 150 megabytes. Anything that's greater than that, you shouldn't be emailing. I mean, here's the thing: you shouldn't be emailing large files to begin with, anyways. There should be other methods to share large files, because it clutter your inbox. It takes up so much storage on your inbox as well, your Exchange. So either way, that's where this comes in. Again, share all kinds of different pictures, images, whatever. And then you can kind of set your duration, like 30 days, passcode protected, right? So if you do passcode protection, ultimately what you're saying is you need that passcode in order to access the file and download type deal. So this is what we have available right now, 5 gigs base, but we're gonna have a paid version up to 100 gigabytes, and there's other features as well. There are going to be API features related to the paid version, so you could like programmatically use it in like Power Automate, Zapply, some of these other automation platforms, where you can like upload documents. Let's say that you could put in Power Automate, when a file is uploaded to SharePoint, you could have a trigger where that starts. You take that object, send it to the API, like Go Share the API, to post it, and return is going to give you back the URL download link and passcode or password that's needed to access the file. And then you could easily build that into your Power Automate to extract that JSON data and populate it to like the email body and send the email out to a specific group, user group. So now anytime there are changes to the file, they get a notice right away and of that file. And I'm not talking about internally. This is more like you're dealing with external people. So like that, there's changes. They will always get the latest version of what's being managed internally, but they'll be able to access it through the portal. And that's just an example, right? But again, guys, man, if y'all could create an account, play around with it, give me feedback, I would be very, very much appreciative. I'm working on some final features and going to start promoting it pretty heavily, hopefully by the end of the month. So we'll see if we could get some traction on that platform. All right, guys, so that's it. I'm gonna call it. I'm done for today on streaming. I'm gonna be streaming again, guys, all week, Monday through Friday. Something different, something new. I'm gonna try it out, see if there's some benefit of doing it or not. If it turns out that, hey, I'm just streaming and really is not benefiting nobody at all, then yeah, maybe I'll stop. But for now, I'm gonna try it out for the remainder of the month and see how it goes, and kind of go from there. Again, guys, man, appreciate it. Thanks for joining the stream, those of you who joined. And yeah, man, see y'all next time. Peace.